There was a time when the sound of a Cat 3406 engine was the heartbeat of America's highways. Its deep, confident rumble echoed across endless stretches of asphalt, from the icy plains of Montana to the humid backroads of Alabama. Truckers didn't just drive with it, they lived with it. That engine was their partner, their breadwinner, their pride. But one day that roar began to fade, and with it, an entire legacy started slipping away. The Cat 3406 wasn't just a diesel engine. It was a movement, a symbol of raw mechanical trust. Built to last 1,000,000 miles and then some, it became the gold standard of trucking reliability. But when the day came that Caterpillar, the brand behind this iron legend, pulled out of the highway engine business, it felt like betrayal. Not just to the market, but to every man and woman who ever gripped a wheel and trusted a yellow badge to get them home. The question still burns like hot diesel. How did one of the most respected engines in American trucking history lose its road? Before we dive deep into the heartbreak and history, take a moment to remember what this story means. It's not just about metal, pistons, and horsepower. It's about identity. It's about the people who built a life on long-haul dreams and mechanical loyalty. So stay with me till the end, because by the time we reach the final stretch of this story, you'll see why the Cat 3406 didn't just vanish. It sacrificed itself for something bigger. In the golden age of American trucking, the 1970s through the early 2000s, the Cat 3406 wasn't just another engine. It was the undisputed heavyweight champion of diesel power. The name alone carried weight. Mechanics respected it. Fleet owners demanded it, and drivers swore by it. Introduced in the late 1970s, the Cat 3406 was Caterpillar's answer to the growing demand for reliable, high-torque diesel engines that could endure punishing loads and extreme conditions. It quickly became the backbone of long-haul transport, powering Peterbilts, Kenworths, Freightliners, and Western Stars across the continent. The engine's reputation grew not from flashy marketing but from real-world performance. You could push it through desert heat or mountain frost, run it overloaded or under-maintained, and it would still bring you home. It was overbuilt in every sense. Every gasket, every piston ring, every bolt carried Caterpillar's trademark obsession with durability. But behind the roar of success, changes were brewing. Changes that would test not just the engine, but Caterpillar's soul. Birth of a mechanical titan. The 3406's story began in the late 1970s, as Caterpillar engineers sought to create a diesel engine that could compete with Detroit Diesel and Cummins. They didn't just want to make a strong engine. They wanted to make the best heavy-duty engine in the world. The mission was clear. Design something that could handle extreme torque, deliver consistent performance, and last longer than anything on the market. The result was the Cat 3406, a 14.6-liter inline-six with a cast iron block, dry sleeve liners, and precision fuel injection. It was simple, mechanical, and nearly indestructible. Each version of the engine refined the formula, from the early 3406A to the electronically controlled 3406E. Truckers loved it for a simple reason. It worked. You could rebuild it in the field, you could tune it with basic tools, and it had torque that pulled mountains apart. Fleet managers loved it too, because downtime was minimal and profit was predictable. Caterpillar had built an icon. By the mid-1980s, if you weren't running a Cat 3406, you were missing out on the best diesel money could buy. The golden years of the Cat 3406. The 1980s and 1990s were the golden age for the 3406. It was everywhere, hauling freight, logging, towing, and even powering industrial equipment. It became synonymous with American power. Truckers would brag about the yellow engine under the hood like it was a badge of honor. The 3406B refined reliability. It was fully mechanical, with better fuel economy and smoother operation. Then came the 3406C, which improved cooling and durability for high-load applications. But the real game-changer was the 3406E, launched in the mid-1990s, introducing full electronic control. It delivered more horsepower, better fuel efficiency, and met emerging emissions standards. Drivers loved the E model. It pulled hard, ran smooth, and had an unmistakable growl that no Cummins or Detroit could mimic. But that evolution came with a cost: complexity. Still, during those years, the 3406E was the engine to have. You could find it roaring down interstates in shiny long-nosed Peterbilts, climbing mountain passes with 80,000 pounds in tow, or idling at truck stops under neon lights, the sound of a nation on the move. Yet beneath the glory, the industry was changing, and Caterpillar, once untouchable, was about to face a storm that would shake its foundations. When regulations changed the game. At the turn of the millennium, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, began tightening emissions regulations for heavy-duty diesel engines. Manufacturers were forced to reduce nitrogen oxide, NOx, and particulate matter emissions to unprecedented levels. For decades, engines like the 3406 were designed around one thing: performance. Reliability, torque, rebuildability, those were the priorities. But now, the game shifted to compliance, efficiency, and emissions control. Electronic systems, exhaust gas recirculation, EGR, and later, diesel particulate filters, DPF, became mandatory. For Caterpillar, this wasn't just a challenge, it was an identity crisis. The company had built its reputation on simplicity and strength. EGR and complex electronic emission systems didn't fit the CAT DNA. Still, they tried to adapt. The 3406E evolved into the C15, a direct descendant designed to meet new emission standards without losing the soul of the original. But the results were mixed. Early emission systems caused reliability issues. Drivers complained of overheating, clogged valves, and reduced performance. Suddenly, the name CAT wasn't invincible anymore, and the EPA wasn't backing down. By 2007, the pressure had reached a breaking point. Caterpillar, the company that had powered America's highways for decades, made a shocking announcement. It was leaving the on-highway engine business. The day the yellow giant walked away, the news hit like a sledgehammer. When Caterpillar officially announced it would no longer produce engines for on-highway trucks, the trucking community was stunned. The company cited regulatory difficulties and unsustainable development costs. But to truckers, it felt like a betrayal, as if their most trusted companion had suddenly vanished. Caterpillar wasn't going bankrupt, far from it. Its construction and mining divisions were booming. But the trucking side, once its pride, was bleeding under emissions costs, warranty claims, and government compliance battles. Truckers saw it differently. They saw a legend giving up. The CAT 3406, once the undisputed king of the highway, had fallen victim to red tape, not mechanical failure. It wasn't the end of CAT engines. They would continue building for off-highway use, marine, and industrial purposes. But for the open road, the yellow badge was gone. For the first time in generations, Peterbilts and Kenworths rolled off the line without a CAT under the hood. And for many, that silence hurt more than any breakdown. After the fall, the truckers who refused to let go. When Caterpillar's exit from the on-highway market became official, it wasn't just another corporate announcement, it felt like a funeral. Across truck stops and diesel garages, conversations turned somber. You could almost feel the silence in those moments when someone mentioned "CAT's done." The disbelief was universal. How could the biggest name in power just walk away? But here's where the story turns from corporate loss to human resilience. Truckers didn't let go. They refused to. The 3406 and its successor, the C15, weren't just machines, they were family. These engines had hauled produce, timber, oil, livestock, and everything in between. They'd been there through snowstorms, engine rebuilds, and endless nights on the highway. You don't forget something that faithful. Across the US, a new culture quietly emerged: the CAT loyalists. They hunted down used 3406's from salvage yards, rebuilt them from the block up, and kept them roaring in their rigs. Mechanics became preservationists, safeguarding knowledge of CAT engines like sacred scripture. Forums, meetups, and Facebook groups dedicated to the 3406E and C15 became lifelines for those who refused to move on. One driver summed it up best: Cummins might have tech, Detroit might have efficiency, but Cat had heart. And that heart was still beating, even if Caterpillar itself had stepped away. The C-15. Legacy carrying the torch. After the 3406E came the C-15, a direct evolution that was both a tribute and a swan song. The C-15 carried the DNA of the 3406, the same rugged architecture, the same unmistakable growl, but dressed in modern electronics and emission systems. It was designed to meet early 2000s EPA standards without losing the brute character of its predecessor. When tuned right, the C-15 was a masterpiece. It could easily hit 600 horsepower and pull over 2,000 pound-feet of torque. Drivers loved its throttle response, the low-end grunt, and that distinct cat tone that could be heard long before the truck appeared on the horizon. But the problems were mounting. The early ACER-T, Advanced Combustion Emissions Reduction Technology, systems that Cat developed to stay compliant were complex and fragile. Engines that once ran 500,000 miles without breaking a sweat started facing cooling issues, turbo failures, and injector problems. Maintenance costs skyrocketed. Warranty claims piled up. Caterpillar tried to fix it. Updates rolled out. Mechanics got new service bulletins every month. But the damage to reputation was already done. The same company known for indestructibility was now being questioned. Still, many stood by their yellow iron. They called the C-15 the last true Cat. And in many ways, they were right. Even today, decades after production ended, the C-15 remains a favorite in the used market. Rebuilders love it, tuners praise it, and drivers who grew up under the hum of a Cat refuse to settle for anything else. Because once you've heard that sound, that deep rolling thunder of a Cat on boost, nothing else compares. Why Caterpillar really walked away? Officially, Caterpillar blamed the rising cost of emissions compliance for its withdrawal. But the truth runs deeper than paperwork. Internally, the company was torn. Its on-highway engine division, while iconic, made up a small fraction of total revenue. The real profits came from mining trucks, bulldozers, marine engines, and industrial power systems, sectors that didn't face the same EPA chaos. Executives looked at the numbers and made a cold, corporate decision. The road wasn't worth the fight. Behind closed doors, engineers were frustrated. Many had dedicated their careers to the 3406 lineage, and now they were being told it was over. One former Cat engineer later said, "It wasn't that we couldn't build a compliant engine. It's that the soul of the 3406 didn't belong in that world anymore." And maybe that's true. The 3406 was built for freedom, not bureaucracy. It thrived in a world where a mechanic could fix it with a wrench and a cigarette dangling from his lip, not in one ruled by software locks and emissions sensors. Caterpillar shifted focus, partnering with Navistar in a short-lived attempt to stay connected to trucking through the CT660, a truck that carried the Cat badge but none of the 3406's magic. It failed. Within a few years, even that venture dissolved. By 2012, Caterpillar had fully exited the on-highway scene. The yellow paint was gone from the road, the cultural impact, when a machine becomes a memory. The Cat. 3406 wasn't just an engine. It became part of American culture. It symbolized grit, independence, and mechanical purity. It was a sound that meant work was getting done, miles were being made, and families were being fed. Ask any long-haul veteran about their favorite rig, and chances are you'll hear stories that start with, "I had a Cat 3406 under the hood." Then their eyes light up. They talk about the torque climbing through the Rockies, the pull across the plains, the satisfaction of hearing that engine idle through the night at a truck stop while they caught a few hours of sleep. You can't replicate that with technology. The 3406 had a soul. Its disappearance marked more than the end of an engine. It marked the end of an era. The open-road freedom of the 1980s and 1990s gave way to modern efficiency, computer diagnostics, and corporate precision. Necessary, perhaps, but sterile. The bond between man and machine changed forever. And that's what makes the Cat 3406 so enduring. It represents something we lost, something that mattered more than horsepower or emissions numbers. It represented trust. Resurrection, the rebirth of the 3406 spirit. Despite the years, the cat 3406 never truly died. It evolved in garages, in rebuild shops, in the hearts of those who refused to let it vanish. Independent rebuilders began restoring old 3406's with passion, bordering on obsession. They sourced original parts, improved weak spots, and tuned them beyond factory specs. Dyno tests started showing numbers unheard of in the engine's heyday: 700, even 800 horsepower. Custom-tuned 3406's became the centerpiece of show trucks, their polished valve covers gleaming like trophies. You'll still find them today, roaring across North America, under the hoods of classic Peterbilts and Kenworths that refuse to retire. They aren't just engines anymore. They're symbols of resistance, proof that old-school diesel power still has a place in a sanitized world. There's even a saying among the faithful: Cummins might rule the charts, but Cat rules the heart. And it's true. Every time a 3406 fires up, that deep, rolling growl echoes like a ghost from the past, reminding the world that the spirit of the highway never really left. When Caterpillar walked away, the highways changed. The roar that once defined America's backbone faded into memory. Efficiency replaced emotion. Software replaced soul. But for those who lived it, for the truckers who spent decades with a cat badge on their grill, the story never ended. They still remember the nights when the yellow glow of their dash matched the glow of the cat logo. The vibration through the seat. The way the engine seemed to hum along with the radio, steady, confident, alive. The Cat 3406 wasn't perfect. It was heavy, loud, and stubborn. But it was honest. It didn't need to be babied or decoded. It asked only for respect, and in return, it gave everything. The heartbreak wasn't just in losing an engine. It was in losing an era when machines still had character, when power was personal. And so, even though the 3406 no longer rolls off assembly lines, its story rolls on. In memories, in rebuilds, and in every echo that still rumbles through a rest stop at 3 a.m., somewhere on the American highway. Keep the legend alive. If you ever find yourself near an old truck yard, and you spot a Cat 3406 sitting there under layers of dust, don't just walk past it. Take a moment, look at it. That engine carried nations, families, and dreams. It deserves respect. Share its story. Keep its memory alive. Because legends like the Cat 3406 don't die. They idle quietly in the hearts of those who still believe that machines, just like people, can have soul.